Howdy folks, Rambler here. Today I have a Kettle stainless steel Scout with the whistle plug. And I've seen a lot of videos of this particular Kettle. None really show how well it burns with wet wood. So today we're going to do a burn with wet wood. I'll fill it up with water here. It rained all night. And it's pretty windy today, but to kind of give a good representation of wet wood, I've had wood here soaking in this bucket of water. You can see it's all nice and wet. That's going to be the majority of what we use. So as I said, this is the Scout model. Filling it to just below the spout is 1 liter and 400 milliliters exactly. So 1.4 liters exactly you can fit in the Kettle stainless Scout model. Unlike the traditional Kettle with the orange stopper or the cork plug, the whistle lid has an opening here, and when it boils, it'll sound just like a typical kettle will with a whistle. And you can leave this in while you're boiling, which helps boil a little faster, as well as it keeps debris and junk from getting in your water when you're boiling. All right, so if I was on a backpacking trip today, which I'm not, I'm sitting in my woodshed obviously, but if I was and it was really wet weather, what I would do is I've been using these Weber fire cubes. They're for starting charcoal chimneys, but what I would do is I would put one of those in and I would use a match to light it. And that's, you know, if I get to camp after the end of a long day and I'm tired, everything's wet, wood's wet, you know, the last thing I want to do is mess around with a fire. I'm just going to use a fire cube and a storm match. So as you can see, this is wet, water all over my hands. I'll break these up a little and just put these around here for when I light this. There we go. Oop. I can get this match to light. There we go. Sometimes they take a couple strikes. I'm gonna get this cube lit. The kettle on. Oh, wrong pile. I put some dry stuff there just in case we have trouble. So there's just a little bit of fuel in there now. Obviously it is all wet. That fire cube looks like it is burning now. I'm just going to slowly start adding fuel and we'll see how long it takes us to get a boil. There's a lot of videos on this Kettle. See, I'm going to just shake off the excess. So I'm just putting in very damp sticks. It was rain, like I said, it was raining all night. It's about, I don't know, maybe 40 degrees right now. It's not too cold. As you can tell, I don't have a lot of smoke coming out right now. It is definitely struggling to get going. I do still have a flame. Now here's a tiny piece of birch bark. You know, to be fair, I'll get that wet. All right, I got that wet. I'm just gonna tie this up, tear a couple little strips. I can just get that down in there. If I can get couple of those lit up, get going a little faster. So obviously, you know, a canister stove, an alcohol stove, white gas stove is going to be faster than this in this, you know, circumstances. If you're trying to use wet wood, but what I'm trying to demonstrate here is Not that it takes longer, but that it's possible. And that's really what it's about. It's possible, because I want you to have faith in your equipment that, you know, when you're out there, if this is what you're bringing and all you're bringing is tinder with you to aid in an easy fire starting, that you can do it. It'll take you a little longer, significantly longer. If you have a full kettle and dry wood, you can boil water in about 3.5 minutes, no matter what size of the Kelly kettle you're using, whether it's the Trekker, the Scout, or the Base Camp. Full kettle, dry wood, properly built fire, you can easily get a boil in about 3.5, 4 minutes tops. However, doing that, you're really cramming it full of wood, and when you lift the kettle off, those are the videos you typically see of the embers and flaming pieces of the wood falling kind of all over the place, which I don't recommend. Now, if you slow down with your wood feeding just a little bit, and you're only adding in enough that you actually need to boil the water, it'll take about 7 to 8.5 minutes, give or take a little bit. And when you take the kettle off, you won't have embers and flaming debris and wood falling out of the fire base. All right, looks like we have a decent little fire going down there now. I'm just still adding these wet pieces of wood right out of this little pail of water. I've had these soaking for about an hour. And for anyone wondering, this wood in particular, it's all the same wood. It's from an apple tree. This branch fell off a couple months back, and it's just been laying in my yard. You know, I don't really have an expectation of how long this is going to take, because I'm purposefully not putting in dry wood to see if I can get a boil in very adverse conditions. And the only thing I have going for me right now is, I don't know if you can hear it, but it is windy. It is very windy. If you've watched Kelly Kettle videos before, you'll probably know that you get flames shooting up out of the top here, and we probably will at some point. Right now I just have flame down inside the base still, well within the chimney, because I'm adding in this wet wood. You know, it's dripping wet, so it's gonna knock down your fire. It's gonna take longer for it to get burning. I'm just gonna stick this piece here to try to sneak out on me. Ooh, hands are getting a little chilly. I do have heat coming out of the chimney, so I can warm them up here. And I have the wind's coming from this direction. I have the whole of my fire base facing into the wind. That's going to give it a little better draft. You always want to try to do that, especially when you're trying to do something like this. You need that extra draft to help you get going. You know, yeah, I could get down on my hands and knees and I could blow into this hole and really kind of drive it to get going, but, you know, I don't want to do that. Who really wants to do that? You know, maybe you do, and that's all fine. You know, if you do, when I'm out on a trip, the last thing I want to do is go kneeling down in the mud and blowing into my stove. You know, you could buy one of those pocket bellows or use an arrow shaft or something if you wanted to too, blow into the hole. I think it works pretty dang good just the way it is, and I don't really see the need. You save yourself, I don't know, a few seconds, a minute maybe. All right, we're starting to burn a little better, but we're still struggling. And I'm pulling some more wood out, kind of shaking off that excess moisture. Drop those little pieces down in. We'll let that burn now. See if we can get some flames coming out here, other than just smoke. I feel heat, and looking down in, I see the occasional kind of wisp of flame, but it is definitely not burning strongly at the moment. I hear it, I just can't see it. We'll give it some time. You know, that's one nice thing about the chimney. You know, normal circumstances, you build a little fire. I usually start it by scraping some birch bark or using a cotton ball or something, light it with flint and steel or ferro rod, whatever you want to call it. And, you know, I light that with a small, you know, maybe a small handful of little broken up twigs on it. Light that. As soon as it gets a flame, I put the chimney on and start dropping in fuel. And I can get a boil very consistently in about 6 minutes. I'm going to say give or take about 30 seconds. And that is just dropping in maybe in grand total about this size pile. So about, you know, one big handful, maybe 1.5 handfuls of wood. Just feed them in, you know, a stick or two at a time, pretty steadily, and right from the moment you light it. And that is enough to boil a Kettle Scout with 1.4 liters in it in about, I'm going to say 5.5 to 6.5 minutes, somewhere in that range. And when you take your kettle off, you're not going to have wood falling everywhere. You know, it's taken me as long as 8.5 minutes. That was the very first burn I ever did. Since that first one, I've kind of learned the way it operates a little better. And, you know, the slowest I've been lately is about 7 minutes. And that's how I'm really kind of lollygagging with throwing wood in. When I tried to boil it as fast as I could, you know, really cramming the thing full of wood, you get 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes pretty easily. All right, there we go. Now I'm starting to see some flame. The breeze is picking up, that's helping. So what I've been doing, I've been playing with I just got this for Christmas, so I haven't had it too terribly long. I've been playing with it as I'm trying to determine if I want to use this to replace my other stoves the majority of the time. You know, fuel doesn't cost an astronomical amount of money, but I take a lot of trips, and going with a wood burning option saves me about 30 some odd dollars a month. I use a lot of fuel. Now, something like the Kettle, you know, it's like anything. It has its pros and its cons. One of the big pros to me is, one, it's a wood burner, and it boils water exceptionally fast. There's not really anything that can go wrong with it, provided that you don't fire it dry. You're not going to damage it. The big con is it's bulky. I'm not even going to say that it's really heavier, because it's not. If you're going out for, you know, say 3 days or less, sure, it's going to be heavy compared to almost any option. But if you're going out for 4, 5, 6 plus days, you know, especially for more than one person, the weight is kind of a wash. If not, sometimes this even wins out, especially if you get the aluminum version. The stainless is obviously a little heavier, but, you know, when you start adding up, you know, just say you're using a canister stove and you're gonna carry 2 canisters. You know, each canister, an 8-ounce canister, is like, what, like 13.4 ounces or so? Man, that is getting windy. So this is 2.8 pounds for the kettle, the whistle plug, the firebase, and I don't have it out here with me, the little hobo stove attachment. That is 2.8 pounds. Oh, and a MSR Titan mug stuck in there. So, you know, that's everything I need to boil water for me and my son. And a lot of times we have one of my friends come with us. That's plenty to boil water for us It boils fast. If I need to do 2 boils, it's not that big of a deal. And I have my mug for drinking, and then, you know, everyone else carries their own mug. And I used to carry a 2 quart pot, and, you know, I don't do a lot of cooking in that pot. It's really using it as a water carrier from a water source and being able to boil 2 quarts at a time, so, you know, everyone can have a meal and a drink at the same time. And this is going to accomplish the same thing for me. We have a good fire going. I think it's still trying to dry out some of this material that's in there. We're just going to let it keep going and see where we get. I'm going to take a wild guess and say it's going to be, I don't even know what time I lit it, but I'll go back and check. I'm going to say it's going to take 17 minutes to boil 1.5 liters from striking the match to when we hear the whistle going. And that's using wet wood, shaking off, you know, some excess water, and that's it. Could be a little less than that, could be a little more. We'll see. I'm just going to use one of these sticks to push some of this stuff down. I always hear the boast about you can burn wet wood. You know what, the other day when it was raining, I tried to do another video, but I don't know, for some reason my phone didn't switch the aspect ratio. And so I didn't end up using it, but it was raining during the day, and I was just picking up wood off the ground, and that I got to boil in about 12 minutes. That was picking up stuff off the ground. You know, it was raining, but I was purposefully looking for, you know, good material still. Whereas this, it's wet, it's dripping with water. I'm trying to demonstrate the worst case possibilities here, but it's struggling. You know, if we want to be realistic, everything that you're gathering is not going to be, you know, having been soaked for an hour in a bucket. You know, you'll be able to find, you know, on some pines or hemlocks or spruces or something, you know, you're going to be able to find those low branches that are dead on the tree still that you can break off that are very dry, even if it's in pouring. They usually stay pretty dry. You're going to be able to find things up off the ground that you'll be able to use, you know, and you don't need a lot. If you can get a handful of really dry stuff, if you mix that in with wet stuff, you're golden. I mean, we're burning wet stuff here. It's just, it takes a while. Same thing if you try to start a campfire with a bunch of soaking wet wood. You can do it, it's going to take some extra effort. The only saving grace with the Kelly kettle is you have that chimney effect that really gets a nice draft going. So far, I really like the Kelly kettle. I've done, I don't know, about 24 burns in it since Christmas. Just messing around with it in the yard here. I'm going to take it out on a trip here in another week or so. But I always like to test everything out at home thoroughly before I take it and rely on it. And I want to know its limits. I want to know how well it can possibly do, and I want to know on its worst day, you know, how is it going to perform. And that's what I'm trying to simulate here. It's my worst day. The only thing that is not bad about today is it's not actively raining. You know, but that can be remedied. I can have my tarp set up, and I can have this going underneath. You know, so rain wouldn't be actively falling on it. But right now, this ground is wet. It's been raining all night. It's windy today, so it's drying out pretty fast, but whew, get smoke in the face. I know I'm going to probably get some haters saying, oh, this thing is horrible. Took you 20 minutes to get a boil or whatever. You know what? I don't really care how long it takes to get a boil. I'm going to say it again. That's not the point of this video. This is not to demonstrate how fast the kettle is. It's not to demonstrate how slow the kettle is. It's not even a review. It is simply a performance evaluation. Because there's a lot of Kelly kettle videos out there, but very few, in fact none, show you how to use this thing in adverse conditions. They all mention offhand, oh, you can burn wet wood. You can use it in any weather, any time of year. Well, I'm putting that to the test. The next big test is once we get snow, is being able to melt snow on top of this thing. There's a little cross pot support you drop in the top. And I think with like an MS, you can either use the pot that comes with the kit. It's a little 1 liter pot, pretty nice pot. The lid is kind of ill-designed. There's no way to take it off without a pair of gloves. I'll probably use my MSR 1 liter Alpine pot, or I might just use my Titan mug or something on the top to melt snow. Or you could just do it on the hobo stove itself, on the firebase, if you didn't have the kettle on. But you really get a nice fire with this chimney. You get a nice draw, and you know, it puts out a lot of heat. Right now, you know, it's not a massive fire going, but under normal burning conditions, you get a lot of heat out of this. And right now, this would be plenty enough to melt snow. You can tell every time you get a nice breeze coming by, you get a real strong, you know, jet of flames coming up. You know, I think we're close. I can kind of hear the water starting to kind of bubble and make that little kind of rumbling sound. So I don't think it'll be too long before we get a boil. I'm almost out of wood here in my little pail. So I'm gonna try to shake that excess off. We're starting to die down here, so I'm gonna drop just these last few pieces in. I'm gonna see if I can get it on that big handful of wood that I dropped in this bucket. Sling that excess water off. So it's still, I don't know if you can see, still very wet to the touch. You know, it's coming off all of my fingers, but you know, the bark is wet, but the inside still, the wood is dry. It's just what's been able to soak into it. So right now, I'm going to say it's kind of debatable whether or not I would get a boil the way it is right now if I were to leave it. It might take a while. The fire's kind of knocked back down after I added those last few pieces, but I wanted to add them when there were still enough coals to be able to ignite them. Debating whether or not I should throw just a few pieces of this dry stuff in, or if we just want to wait and see how it goes. No, I'm just going to wait. If it's a failure, it's a failure. So we get that breeze. I don't know if you can tell. When you get that breeze with the hole facing into the wind, you get a nice draft going. In fact, now we have nice flames again. They just died out, but so it should be pretty close to igniting those few pieces I just put in, it looks like. Ooh, wind is strong. We got a wind advisory today. It's supposed to be, about 30 mile per hour sustained winds on average, gusts up to 50 to 60. It's been pretty windy so far. All right, we got flames again. There's really not a wood left though. Not a lot of wood left in there. So I don't know if this is going to be enough to boil it. We'll see. We shall see. All right. We're going to lose it. So, as you can tell, it struggles with truly wet wood. If I just drop just a little bit of dry stuff in it, I guarantee you we're going to get a boil in no time. I do want to use this water. I'm going to take it inside and go make me a cup of tea. All right, so I just added, I wasn't even really counting. It was maybe 5, 6, something like that, pieces. 2 pea, broke it up into a couple smaller chunks, dropped it in, about the size I normally feed. Just to kind of give it a little something to get going, because it's burned down to the point where there's not really enough left to keep it going. It would probably, if I had more wet wood, it would probably work. I just ran out of wood to put in it. I was kind of judging based off how much it's taken under dry conditions. I figured it would take longer to burn, but not that it would necessarily use more wood. So I was wrong in that respect. It's definitely using about double the amount of wood that it would normally take under optimal conditions. Oh, that feels nice, drying out my hands. We got nice, see, just those few pieces of dry wood going in, I got a nice flame. Nice, that's nice and warm. Dry my hands off, warm them up a little bit. It gets cold sitting here in the wind with soaking wet hands. Going into a bucket of water. Oh, what's in there now? Might boil it. Looks like it's burning pretty good. I'm going to drop these 2 little thin ones in. Looks like it's going to need just a touch more. I kind of like the peacefulness of a wood stove. It's quiet. You get that whiff of smoke occasionally going across your face. There we go. There's the whistle. I'll check that time. And as you can see, it takes significantly longer with wet wood. But even with wet wood, we got most of the way there, and I added in just a few tiny pieces of dry, thin material, and that made the difference. Rambler out.